Today marks another important milestone since the launching of the Foreign Employment Service of the National Employment Center on the 2nd of July last year. On the 11th of December 2014, Fiji signed a bilateral interagency understanding with our New Zealand friends, the Ministry of Employment, Business, Innovation and Employment at the Grand Pacific Hotel here in Suva. During the festive season, the staff of the National Employment Center, particularly the Foreign Employment Service team, worked tirelessly to ensure that we are on par with our New Zealand RSE commitment and thus the preparation and the ready for deployment of our potential workers who will be selected this morning under the agreement to go down to New Zealand hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Today we've come to witness the effectiveness and efficiency of the selection process that was approved by Cabinet and adopted by the NEC team to identify and prepare our potential pilot workers. Our government's overall policy for the participation of Fijian workers in the New Zealand RSE work scheme and future foreign employment engagement is based on transparency, equity, fairness, and following the rule of law and non-discrimination. Moreover, given government's commitment to distribute the benefits of development, more emphasis and priority is given towards the participation of our friends from the rural areas who hopefully will go down to New Zealand as members or part of this pilot scheme. Further, given the nature of work required under the New Zealand RSE scheme, being low-skilled but labor-intensive, will suit our rural dwellers. However, I must also caution potential workers, those of you who have applied, that the work is very intensive and requires long hours of continuous and repetitive work. The work duration under the scheme will last for about 7 months. And workers, may I plead with you on behalf of government and the nation, please do come back home at the end of your term. We look forward to seeing you back here. Government, in its commitment to our nation and its people on the creation and provision of employment opportunities, ratified the ILO Convention 122 in 2008 and introduced the National Employment Center under the NEC Decree of 2009. This commitment is considered or is consolidated and vigorously promoted under the 2013 Constitution under Chapter 2 on the Bill of Rights, in particular Section 32, which provides every citizen the right to full and free participation in the economic life of the state, which includes the right to their own work, their trade, occupation, profession, or other means of livelihood. Section 33 is the specific provision of the right to work and to a just and minimum wage in return. Specifically under Section 33, the state is obligated to take reasonable measures within its resources to achieve the progressive realization of the right of every person to work and to a just and minimum wage, hence the scheme. The New Zealand RSE work scheme is demand-driven. This means that the employers must request for approval to recruit foreigners, including Fijian workers. Employers' duty of care to workers include, among others, the final selection of workers. Let me emphasize that point again. The final selection of workers to go down to New Zealand will be dependent upon the employers. There will be a work-ready pool. The provision of airfares, which is refundable by the workers, will be coordinated with the employers. The provision of transportation and accommodation, the payment of wages, health and safety workplaces, including pastoral work, has been agreed upon under the agreement that I was referring to earlier on. Employers also decide on whether workers can return for a second season. For those of you who are going to go down Do not forget that your ability to return to New Zealand for further employment depends on how you perform. Now let me elaborate further on our selection criteria. In addition to my earlier comments, our selection is very tough, as you would have witnessed and experienced over the last couple of days before the end of the week. Our workers have to be scrutinized and assessed through two separate selection criteria. The main reason behind our tough selection criteria is the government's commitment to send quality workers who are fit, who are healthy, and with good character to New Zealand. Let me show you some statistics to demonstrate the toughness of our selection criteria. At the beginning of the exercise, we had about 5,000 potential workers who had registered with interest through the NSC to work overseas, including New Zealand. Upon applying the two primary criteria of holding a valid passport and rural-based, this number dropped to about 1,576. Further, given our intent stated earlier, we narrowed further the age to about 25 to 35 years. Then our numbers dropped right down to 278. Based on the National Employment Center registration and distribution, the divisional representation of the 278 potential workers were as follows. From the Northern Division, we had about 47. Personnel from the Western Division was down to 104, and the Central Eastern Division about 127 people. Last week, on Thursday and Friday, these 278 potential workers assembled at the Sewer Civic Center to undertake their full medical tests. And I'd like to commend and thank Dr. Tico and the team from the Ministry of Health for their hard work in processing these people through the last 2 days of the week. At the completion of the Body Mass Index, BMI tests, about 195 participants or applicants made it through the day. Secondly, at the completion of the medical tests, only 148 potential workers or applicants were left to undertake their fitness test, which was conducted last Saturday. Again, at the completion of the fitness test, we were left with about 101 potential workers who finally made it to our work-ready pool. These 101 workers in the work-ready pool comprises 28 females and 73 males. I'd like to commend and congratulate our women. 28 females and 73 males, a good number. These 101 workers by division comprise the following. For the Northern Division, we're down to 18, the Western Division, 41, and the Central Eastern Division, about 42. From the work-ready employers, ready pool, the employers will select their 30 pilot workers. While only 30 workers will be selected for the pilot scheme, the remaining 78 workers who are in the work-ready pool, which will be utilized also when foreign employment work opportunities come in, including the Australian Seasonal Workers Scheme. Now, as we gather here this morning, ladies and gentlemen, the ministry staff is in the final processes of finalizing this agreement with our with our Australian friends, and hopefully we will be selecting people to go down to Australia as well. To mark the completion of our first ever internal selection process, we will conduct a barrel selection this morning. We will invite some of our guests to participate in this process. Our intent of conducting this public barrel selection is to ensure that our process is transparent and fair, given that we are choosing only 30 workers. We will conduct the barrel for 30 names. However, as stated earlier, the employer will do the final selection. And for those of you who will not make the 30, do not lose hope, do not despair. Once your name is in the ready employment pool, your chances of going down to New Zealand before the end of this year or later on to Australia is very good. The main thing is getting through the initial selection process. I am grateful to the state that the first two employers who were given the approval to recruit Fijian workers are the Pick Hawke's Bay Incorporated Fruit Picking Company based in Hawke's Bay. the East Pack Food Processing Factory for export, which is based in the Bay of Plenty. Big Hawke's Bay Incorporated is the biggest recruiter for Pacific Islander seasonal workers in New Zealand. The employer representative for Big Hawke's Bay Incorporated will be coming next week to interview his workers, who are scheduled, I've been told, to leave our shores for New Zealand by no later than Saturday the 21st of February. We're talking about the next 2 to 3 weeks. The second employer, the East Pack, will also take on about 12 workers, and the company representative will also be in the country later this month to select those workers who will be picked to go down, and they are scheduled to depart Nadi on Monday the 16th of March. Having shared the above good news and highlights, I wish to assure all those who have registered and have undergone the selection process, particularly those who will not be selected to make the 30 this morning. As I said, do not lose hope, do not despair. You will be going at some stage. For those of you who have gone through the selection process, you know your weaknesses, areas which you have to improve your physical well-being. Those of you with high blood pressure and other defects which have been identified during the medical test, you have some time to correct those faults and come back again and try again. In concluding, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to acknowledge with much appreciation the firm commitment and good faith of the New Zealand government. The High Commissioner, Mark Ransome, thank you very much for all your support and your help and encouragement over the last couple of weeks as we try to go through and pick the 30 workers or the initial group that will be going down to New Zealand over the next couple of weeks. May I assure the New Zealand government and employers that the Fijian government is also very committed to this wonderful opportunity and will do all it can in the process of Fijian workers or in selecting the workers to come down to New Zealand as the initial pilot workers for the scheme. For 2015, the Fijian government, and I'd like to acknowledge with gratitude the allocation of 500,000 from the Ministry of Finance to the Employment Centre for the processing of the workers over the next couple of years, over the next couple of months rather. Secondly, I acknowledge with appreciation the work of the government working group that comprises the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, our friends from the other departments, the Public Service Commission, the Minister for Trade, the Ministry for Education, the Ministry of Health, in particular the nurses who worked long hours last week, the Office of the Solicitor General, the Department of Immigration, and last but not least, our friends from the police force who conducted the physical tests last Saturday. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge with much appreciation and gratitude the work of the staff of the ministry, particularly the hard-working volunteers and those in the Foreign Employment Service of the National Employment Centre. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Nawa Lewu, Dhanyavad, and may God bless you all. That's number 4. It's Maria Rocotina Turakadis.